Hello. My name's Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump is a New Year's movie. I was going to do this video for Thanksgiving, then Christmas, but neither felt right because Forrest Gump isn't a Christmas movie, it's not a Thanksgiving movie, it's not an Easter, Halloween, Kwanzaa, or National Sandwich Day movie. Forrest Gump is a New Year's movie.
Happy New Year, Gump.
1994's Forrest Gump stars Tom Hanks as the titular character, a simple man who tells the story of his life from a park bench. It's a long movie, an incredible movie, and possibly my favorite movie. It has everything from war to shrimp fishing, ping pong to football, and even things as complicated as love, death, and prejudice. So why has this film become a modern New Year's classic? And what do I think of its soundtrack? Well, welcome to Rhythm and Foods, where recipes meet music. And today, we'll be making a New Year's feast inspired by Forrest Gump and its soundtrack. For our stuffing today, we're going to be making fried rice. This will go inside a turkey, which will make for a delicious centerpiece for our feast. So, I'm just pouring some chicken stock into some water, as well as some sesame oil. I use the amount of water as directed for the amount of rice being used, and let it cook up. Then, we're going to mix in some mixed vegetables, frozen, and we're going to cut up one red onion and put that in as well. Now, we're going to grab our turkey boy. Make sure your hands are nice and clean. We're going to take them, put them in a huge old roasting pan, open them up, and we're going to stuff a whole bunch of rice right in there. Make sure it's full of fried rice, completely filled. This will give it lots of flavor. And now we're just going to make a nice, not really a marinade, but just something to coat it with for some extra flavor. So we're mixing together some oil with some garlic powder and honey here. And then we're going to take some maple syrup as well and just pour a nice little generous amount of that in. Then we're going to mix it all together and just kind of rub it on the turkey like so. Try and cover the entire surface of the turkey. It's going to be quite delicious. There's also a bit of black pepper in there. Now we're putting salt and pepper on top before we close the lid on it and put it in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I got that turkey stuffed with a very simple fried rice, and it's up and in the oven baking. We can start to talk about Forrest Gump. So let me just start off by saying right now that this movie is incredible. It's won countless awards, and for very good reason. Very few movies can make you feel this much while also covering such an incredible range of topics. Tom Hanks' perspective as a simple man makes for some of the most profound sayings and observations ever put to film, many of which are used as common idioms even to this day.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Ever let anybody tell you they're better than you, Forrest? If God intended everybody to be the same, He'd have given us all braces on our leg.
Mama says stupid is as stupid does.
Always told me that miracles happen every day. Some people don't think so, but they do.
You know why we a good partnership, Forrest? Because we be watching out for one another, like brothers and stuff.
Don't you be afraid, sweetheart. Death is just a part of life.
I guess Lieutenant Dan figured there's some things you just can't change. Bubba was my best good friend. And even I know that ain't something you can find just around the corner. Mom always said you got to put the past behind you before you can move on.
Destined to do. I didn't know it, but I was destined to be your mama.
Mom always said there's an awful lot you can tell about a person by their shoes.
I don't know if we each have a destiny, or if
we're all just floating around accidental like on a breeze. But I think maybe it's both.
And that's all I have to say about that.
As Forrest grows and changes, you see the world growing and changing around him. This movie seamlessly integrates real American history into a fictional story in a way that not only feels real, but is exceptionally nuanced. It's coming of age of a man alongside his nation. But what exactly makes this a New Year's film?
That is the question.
New Year's is a time of reflection. A time to look back at the year before and set goals for the year ahead. Above all, New Year's, it's a time of change. Forrest Gump has many themes, many great messages. But a constant theme that runs throughout the film is change. We get to see a world change, presidents come and go, war, the hippie movement, celebrities, assassinations, deaths. We see Ginny change from a traumatized little girl to a troubled woman and finally even into a caring mother. We see Lieutenant Dan change from a soldier to a completely broken man and finally to someone who's at peace. We see Bubba become Forrest's best friend only to change his life forever when he meets his untimely end. We see Forrest's mama and our kind lessons change the way Forrest interprets the world around him. But the one constant in this movie is Forrest. Forrest remains this pure, simple person, simply experiencing the world as it changes around him, reflecting on the past, somehow sure of the future, and perpetually incapable of not saying the wrong things around Dan.
Lieutenant Dan, I got you some ice cream. Lieutenant Dan, ice cream.
This turkey dinner is traditional and, in a sense, old-fashioned, kind of like Forrest's mama and her countless sayings.
Life is a box of chocolates, Forrest. You never know what you're gonna get.
Mama always had a way of explaining things so I could understand them.
But it's also experimental, and therefore new, reflecting the theme of both New Year's and the movie. Let's move on to cooking the mashed potatoes and see just how experimental we can get here. So we're going to grab some potatoes. I have 5 here, and then I also grabbed 1 piece of celery root. We're going to cut them all up into little bits, not too small, but around equal size, and just put in some cauliflower on top of all of that. These are all pretty neutral flavored vegetables that will come together to make for a delicious mash. I'm not really sure if you could still call this mashed potatoes, but I'm going to refer to it as such throughout. So now we're filling up the pot with not water, but milk or cream. I use milk. And we're just filling it up to about level, so just until the vegetables barely start to float. Then we're cooking it for a long time with a lot of paprika until it's all completely tender. So as you can see now, it's so tender in fact that it can all be penetrated with a butter knife. Now we're going to put it all in a blender container, and this will just blend up very easily into our mash. So just turn it on and then let it blend. There we go. As you can see, it's a very fine puree. And that's how you make mashed potatoes with celery root. A slightly new take on traditional mashed potatoes. And I think it's time for us to finally talk about our soundtrack for today. Forrest Gump's soundtrack is arguably just as good as the film itself. It has an immense variety of songs, many of which have become soundtrack staples independently just because of this film's inspired use of them. It shows the evolution of American music alongside the film's depiction of the evolution of America, from Elvis to protest songs.
How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man?
to hippie music.
If you're going to San Francisco.
This soundtrack is loaded top to bottom with hits including deep cuts, from every decade that the film covers. Not to mention its exceptional theme, which perfectly conveys the feeling of drifting in the wind. Something expressed to us visually through the film using this feather. At both the beginning and end, you could argue the entire movie is following the feather's journey, which just so happens to be in Forrest's possession throughout most of the film. The feather drifting in the wind represents Forrest, at peace, undetermined, undeterred, a simple observer, changing, going wherever the wind blows him. A drifter who's seen more of the world than you could ever imagine. The feather is unbiased, without preference, and this is demonstrated by the incredible range of music on this soundtrack. So now we're making sweet glazed carrots. We made carrots just like this before, and we'll certainly make them again in the future. This time I'm just pouring in water and sugar to these carrots. I have since then, since this video came out, changed and altered this recipe in specific ways to make these carrots even more delicious, but this is still a fantastic method that turned out very well. Add some salt and pepper, let all the water boil out, and now let me relate this back to the album. These carrots are sweet and delicious, as I mentioned in my White Album Feast video. They have become an absolute favorite in my household, just as this movie is a personal favorite of mine. And you'll notice this meal already has a very wide variety of flavors, and that's because this movie and its soundtrack go to such a massive range of different places. So these sweet carrots, they represent the sweet heartwarming moments that are peppered all throughout the movie and soundtrack. The turkey is indicative of tradition and nostalgia, which is also very much present in this film.
Sweet home Alabama, where the sky was blue. Sweet home Alabama, Lord, I'm coming home to you.
The altered mashed potatoes represent change and new beginnings.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
And next we'll be working on berry cranberry sauce. Cranberry sauce it's traditional, but it also tastes very bittersweet. And bittersweet is definitely one of the best words you could use to describe this movie. Yes, Forrest Gump is full of emotional highs. It has its really happy moments. But it also has some of the saddest moments that ever put to film as far as I'm concerned.
If I'd have known this was going to be the last time me and Bubba was going to talk, I'd have thought of something better to say. Hey, Bubba. Hey, Forrest.
There are many losses in this movie, and they are heartbreaking. Forrest's struggle to love Jenny, coupled with her struggle to love herself, and Lieutenant Dan's horrible struggle coming to terms with destiny. It's brutal and depressing. But Forrest's simple mindset, it brings a sweetness and even a touch of humor to even the most heart-wrenching moments of the film.
Sometimes I guess there just aren't enough rocks.
It is bittersweet entirely by nature. So I called this cranberry berry sauce because it's not just cranberries in it. We're also using some frozen cherries as well as frozen cranberries here. And we're putting in some fresh raspberries right now. Just pulling those into little bite-sized pieces. This whole thing is on a low heat. Now we're just pouring in some maple syrup. This syrup you already see in there is just the water coming off of all these melted berries, as well as with the water boiling out or steaming out of the cherries. We're just going to heat it up until it's a boil, and in the meantime we're going to make a little slurry here using some cornstarch and some cold water. This will help make this more jelly-like in its consistency. Instead of just being completely liquidy and soupy, it will firm up a little bit. Now we just let it boil for a little while. You can see it's already starting to gel and thicken up. And you can add some white sugar for sweetness at this step as well. And now that the cranberry berry sauce is ready, we can make the gravy. That's really all that's left to make now. I'm sure you've noticed none of the preparations today have been particularly complicated. It's a big meal, but it's a very simple one to make. Something even a simple man like Forrest Gump could cook up. The overall simplicity of this New Year's feast reflects the perspective from which the film is shown. While the feast itself, a large meal designed to be shared with friends and family, is reflective of his incredibly kind and generous character. The final addition to this meal, the gravy, is the simplest preparation, but it's actually the one that ties the entire meal together, and it enhances all the other dishes. So for the gravy, all you really need to do is pour the drippings off of your turkey, which is now completely ready and fresh out of the oven. Look how delicious and nicely cooked it is. It's blackened a little, but that's mostly just that crisp honey mixture you put on top. The skin isn't burnt or anything, neither is your flesh underneath. It's actually perfectly well done. Then we're just going to pour in a little bit of gravy mix. This is specifically gravy mix for fowl or game, so it'll be quite good with the turkey. And then just half a cup of cream, the heaviest cream I've got. I believe this is 18% table cream. Then we mix it together all nice like. Look at that. Then, if you want it, you can pour in some of the juice from the carrots. I poured in too much carrot juice. The carrots are well cooked, but I just had too much water, so I poured some into the gravy. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing so, as it made the gravy quite sweet. It was delicious overall, but if you don't want your gravy to be sweet, don't do that. Anyways, look at this delicious feast. There's everything from the mashed potatoes to the sauce. And doesn't look good on a plate. This would make a delicious New Year's Day meal. And there you have it, an entire New Year's feast inspired by Forrest Gump and its soundtrack. I hope everybody watching this has a fantastic New Year's. And if you're looking for plans, why not invite over the people you love, cook up this delicious feast, and start a new tradition this year by sitting down and watching Forrest Gump together. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll have a happy New Year's, and make sure to check out my last video to see how to make an tasty Italian spaghetti inspired by Billy Joel's The Stranger. Leave a like if you like this, and subscribe for more Rigaman foods. I hope to see you next time. Have a happy New Year's. Goodbye.